Alright guys, so let's talk about what is happening today with AMC stock, because a lot of your quote-unquote meme stocks are down quite dramatically today. Like, take a look at GameStop, down about 10.32%, Redbox down about 13%, but then look at AMC, up 2.18%. Now AMC stock was up a lot more in the beginning of trading today, and the markets had a lot of weakness once we opened the day, and that definitely brought everything down. Quote-unquote meme stocks did not really recover the same way as the markets since have, but it's a pretty muted day overall. Now AMC stock is up still and positive still because of Top Gun Maverick, which just did clock in about $160 million for the 4-day weekend, and that is obviously a great number, and that should lead to AMC stock having a good number once they report earnings. It's quite interesting though that GameStop is down over 10% when they actually report earnings tomorrow in after hours, so that can definitely affect AMC. As you guys know, GameStop and AMC tend to move, well, one and one, they tend to relatively move the same. And with a big catalyst like GameStop earnings, it could be pretty important for AMC stock as well. Now, we know we have the executive order that goes into effect on Friday, and like we talked about in the last video, with AMC stock specifically, the day the executive order goes into effect is typically not when you actually peak out. It's a couple days after that. So I think this week is going to be bullish. I think we're going to continue to see that ramp up into Friday, and then we'll see a very good day on Friday, and then next week I think that's when things could really start to get interesting for AMC stock, and we see this reflected in the option activity. It is quite bullish for the day, looking at a positive order value of about 80%, 23 orders totaling $5.61 million. Lots of calls that are coming through, and a lot of puts that are actually being sold around the $13 strike as well as the $11 strike for July 15th. So selling a put, that is obviously a bullish thing because these hedge funds are betting the stock is above that price that they are selling the puts for. Over the past week, 112 orders totaling $51.5 million, positive order value of 60%, so still good right there. The short interest of free float is sitting at 22.7%, current shares that are sold short of 117.03 million, cost to borrow max at about 14.91%, cost to borrow average at about 10.1%, cost to borrow minimum at 1.47%, 100% utilization, days to cover sitting at 3.5, shares out on loan 175.56 million, free flow out on loan about 34%. So there's a lot of shares that are out on loan that could potentially be used against us, so watch out for that. And I think whatever details come out of this Fed meeting between Fed Powell and Biden that is happening right now could kind of give people an excuse to short potentially a lot of stocks that are potentially overvalued, right? AMC stock not really overvalued in my personal opinion at a 1 price to sales ratio, but that meeting could also be very bullish for stocks if there is somewhat of a U-turn in the tone of Fed Jerome Powell, something along the likes of what we seen during 2018 when Trump threatened to fire Jerome Powell and then he stopped raising rates. That could be a good thing. Or Joe Biden could say, hey, we gotta get rates up quick, you gotta rug pull the markets so we can get inflation down ASAP. Who knows? Stock market down, energy prices up, not good for any political agenda. So I think there's going to be something that comes out of this meeting. And just for context, these meetings are very rare with the president and the Fed. It's not like a typically scheduled thing. It's not something that happens like every year or every 6 months. They can be kind of sporadic, and we didn't even know this until just over this weekend. So we did not know this was going to happen until just a couple days ago. So there is that, and I do want to point out that the balance sheet reduction is supposed to start tomorrow. So if we get any news about that, that could potentially be very bullish as well. But all in all, why AMC stock is actually up today is because Top Gun Maverick, and that is obviously adding a lot of enthusiasm to AMC stock. Some other stocks as well, like Mullen, are up dramatically. They have since fallen a little bit as the markets have fallen. But some stocks are doing better than not, but overall a pretty weak day for the markets. The markets are kind of struggling here to even, remain slightly green. So pretty muted day. As far as economic data, we went over this earlier, but we will talk about it yet again. For today, we didn't have anything too crazy. Tomorrow, we do have a couple of Fed speakers, and you do have the Bank of Canada interest rate decision, ISM manufacturing PMI, JOLTS job openings, and then you do have Fed Williams that speaks, a couple ECB speakers, as well as Fed Bullard that speaks at 1 p.m. And those Fed speakers are going to be pretty important in the grand scope and just the concept of Joe Biden and Fed Jerome Powell meeting. If Powell wants to get a message out ASAP, he's going to do it through one of these Fed speakers. So I think it might be a little bit more important than not to pay attention to what these Fed speakers say. But all in all, I think the main catalyst and the main driver of price action for AMC stock going ahead throughout the next couple of days and really the next week or two is going to be the executive order. And the executive order made the stock go crazy in January and in June, and I think that is going to happen again, and we are seeing this ramp up into the executive order, because ultimately if we can get to 20, 25 or even higher before that executive order goes into effect, and then if it stays in effect, if they do not retract the executive order as fast as they have in the past, that's where the stock could ultimately make some pretty massive moves here. So there is that. We also did have some news. McConnell was saying that we do possibly need to go into recession to get inflation down, which was not good, and the markets did start to sell off in that. Not exactly sure why that is not loading at the current moment, but we do have 2 weeks, 0 days, 23 hours, and 31 minutes until the next Fed interest rate decision, and that will be on June 15th. So about 2 weeks on the dot, and you got about a 97.9% probability of a 50 basis point rate hike. The next meeting, 50 basis points. September meeting, that's where it gets a little bit split here, with most people still expecting a only a 25 basis point rate hike, but about 44.5% of market participants are expecting a 0.5% rate hike, and that's kind of what Fed Jerome Powell indicated with the FOMC minutes, that they wanted to keep raising rates super aggressively, 50 basis points at the next couple of meetings, and then start to slow down by September. So it looks like markets are starting to price this in a little bit here right now, and that's why you have seen a little bit of a recovery here in the S&P 500 as well. Now for AMC stock, in the actual technical picture that we are looking at, I mean, we're at $14.58 per share. I wanted to see us stay above 15, which we went all the way to about $16 today. $16 and about 13 cents was the high, and then we did fall back under 13, so that was not necessarily a good thing. I wanted to see us stay above 15, but I don't think it's going to be too hard to stay above 15, if that makes sense. I think possibly tomorrow or the day after that, we're going to go above 15. If we can break out above the 50 and 100-day moving averages, that's going to be extremely bullish. Those at moving averages at about $17 a piece, they are converging, so that's nice. If we can get a push above that, it's going to be pretty easy to break out above both of them, and then we could make our way to $20 or even $30 per share by the time the executive order does go into effect. And liquidity and market conditions now are much different than what we even seen in March, right? Bond yields have continued to climb, meaning real interest rates have continued to climb. Stocks have sold off dramatically, and look what even happened back in March, right? Like, you had a 200% rally from the bottom to the top. Now just imagine what this executive order could do for AMC stock, and likely will do for AMC stock, especially, like I said, if it continues to be implemented. If it's not just a 1, 2, 3 day event like we've seen in the past, that's where things could get a little bit crazy, and that's where you could see hundreds or thousands of dollars per share for AMC stock. But really, I do want to talk about my price prediction for this week, as well as the next couple of weeks, and kind of what I expect. And to be honest with you guys, if this executive order stays in effect, I think we could go to a couple $100, if not possibly $1,000 in the next coming weeks. Obviously, it's not going to happen all in one day, and obviously I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you that with certainty. I don't know what the president's going to do. I don't know, who makes the decisions necessarily for the executive order. I doubt it's Biden himself. But if that does stay into effect, I would think at least that AMC stock at least would head to about $25 per share by this Friday, and then that next week is where you could see some pretty explosive rallies and make our way to maybe $300, $400, $500. Granted, if the executive order does remain in effect. So that is basically what I expect, and that's just going off the price action that we've seen in January as well as in June, and kind of extrapolating the market conditions from that, because the market conditions in January and June, ultra low interest rates, stocks hitting all-time highs, right? What do you have now? Stocks hitting multi-year lows, if not all-time lows. You have interest rates that are through the roof. You have capital that is not cheap and accessible. So what does that mean? It's going to be a lot harder for shorts to remain in their short positions. They're going to have to cover a lot faster. At the same time, you still see a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of potential FOMO on a day-to-day basis for AMC stock. And look at the option activity that we're looking at, right? June 17th, 18,000 calls that are in the money, 230,000 calls that are out of the money, 87,000 puts that are in the money. These puts, that's a lot of potential buying power if the stock does go up, that the market makers will have to basically de-hedge those puts by buying shares on the open market. Obviously, same thing for a gamma squeeze. I think people understand calls going into the money a little bit better than they understand puts going from in the money out of the money, but it's the same form of buying power. July 15th, 27,000 for calls that are in the money, 289,000 for calls that are out of the money, and 45,000 for puts that are in the money. So if we do see a big rally in AMC stock, we could break out above, $20, $30, $40, $50, you're going to see a full-on gamma squeeze throughout basically the whole entire option chain, given how cheap the premiums currently are. So I think that's pretty important. Now, to look back at the technicals before we do go ahead and wrap up this video, because there's not too much else to actually say, it's going to be pretty slow as far as news is concerned, just because, you're coming off Memorial Day, and, sell in May and go away is definitely going to start kicking into effect, and you should overall see a little bit less volatility. Obviously not a guarantee, but that's typically what happens in the markets. Volume is at about 89 million for the day so far. We only have about an hour and a half left of trading, so it's going to be a little bit higher than not for the day, which is pretty interesting. You could see the MACD is very bullish. This yellow line is above that blue line quite substantially, seeing that gap really widen a little bit more today. The RSI is at 53.66, so above neutral, so looking like essentially bullish. If it's under 50, that is the neutral rate of 50. If it's under that, you're getting a little bit oversold. If it's above that, you're a little bit overbought, but it's not like overbought. You're overbought when you're over 70. So it's just bullish. There's definitely a lot of room to potentially rally as far as the technical indicators here, and I think it's a really good sign overall that some of your other, meme stocks or retail stocks, whatever you want to call them, like Redbox and GameStop, are down so much, and then AMC is ultimately up, and that's coming off of the Top Gun Maverick box office numbers. And the stock was up like 10% in the beginning of trading today, possibly even more than that. Like I said, hitting $16.65 in pre-market, and you have since fallen over $2 since then. So overall, I think it is bullish that the stock is green today relative to some of its other momentum peers. But that is pretty much going to be all for this video. Stay tuned for any updates we get out of this Fed and Fed Powell meeting with Biden. I think that's going to be possibly the biggest catalyst of this week, depending what comes out of that. If we get a statement later today, if not tomorrow, it's going to be really, really key. So thank you guys for watching. Get your free stocks down below in the description with Webull, Moomoo, and Public. And if you guys want to come trade with me live in real time, link down below in the pinned comment as well for the buy and sell alerts. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.